All right, welcome everyone. I call the January 12th, 2021 regular Bothell City Council meeting to order. Before we move on to the agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge our remote meeting format. Proclamation 20-28 regarding open public meetings is still in effect. Therefore, this meeting will be held entirely remotely. Public comment will be allowed both in writing or verbally. Sign-up sheets were provided by the city clerk's office via link from this agenda. The video of this meeting will be streamed live, as well as recorded and available for later viewing on the city's YouTube channel. A call-in number was provided on the meeting agenda for members of the public who wish to call in by phone to listen live to the meeting. If you have called in, we ask that you mute your device so as not to interfere with the meeting. If a participant fails to mute their connection and causes a disruption to the meeting, the connection will be terminated. For our phone-in callers during staff presentations, staff will make every effort to specify which materials they are referencing so everyone can follow along. At this point, we will take a moment to take roll call of the council members by position. Please say here when the city clerk calls your name.
Deputy Mayor Zorns.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember McAuliffe. Councilmember McNeil.
Here.
Mayor Olson.
Here.
Councilmember Dorr.
Here.
Councilmember Agnew.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, lastly, before we begin, I'd like to reiterate some of the meeting guidelines. Speak clearly and pause frequently. Mute your microphone when not speaking. If you're also streaming the live video feed, please turn the sound off as there is a delay. So for our council members, if you want to speak, please indicate this by holding up the yellow speaker card in the lower portion of your screen. This will help avoid two people from speaking at the same time. And so our first meeting agenda item is the meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Deputy Mayor Zorns.
Yes, I'd just like to pull one item. It's AB 21002.
All right. Noted. All right, seeing no one else. We have public engagement opportunities. All right, so I tapped the wrong button. Hold on one second. All right, upcoming public engagement opportunities. So 2020 has been rough. So pet preparedness webinar. So did you get a new pet during quarantine? Join us January 28th from 7 to 8 p.m. to follow pet owners, show off your new pet, your new four-legged friends, and to learn about emergency preparedness with pets. So visit our website to register. And then apply for a board or commission by February 12th. So if you want to serve your community and weigh in on the important government decisions, apply. Volunteer for the Arts Commission, Park Board, Planning Commission, and more. So apply at bothellwa.gov/boards. All right, on to our next item, council committee reports. Does anyone have a report they'd like to make? I'll just take a moment. So I attended the Landmark Preservation Board just before Christmas, and so they were going over some of their planning duties, and they chose, or really they wanted to focus on some of their mandates, updating the register that they have. So they have a part-time staff person, so that they decided to make that the priority, just with the budget that we have, and just focusing on what needs to be done and maintained, as well as items that come in for review for any developments. They did have a development that came in that they were looking at. They had a presentation, and so as part of the demo for part of the property there, they had documentation of what it was. It wasn't historically significant, but they the developer still documented what was there, and they'll have a website sharing that documentation. And part of the comment or part of the discussion by the Landmark Board was to look at bringing all of these documentations together for like on the Landmark Preservation Board or on their page. So it's not just little pieces from each development for each community, but it could be community-wide for these historical pieces of our community that are no longer around but have been documented. So that was one item that the board was going to look into for future work, just collating those all into just a single resource that people can access throughout the community. All right, on to visitor comments. City Clerk, do we have any this evening?
Mayor Olson, we did not have anybody sign up for visitor comment. I do show one person in the attendee list under the name of Dan. Dan, if you would like to speak, could you please use the raise your hand function and we'll panel you in to speak under visitor comment? Yep, he does. Okay, I'm going to panel him in. Just give me 1 second. Dan, if I'm going to ask you to unmute and then you'll have 3 minutes which to speak. And looks like I just lost him. I don't know where he went. Dan, are you there? I'm showing he's unmuted and he should be. Robin, can you see what is happening with Dan? I don't show that he's muted or anything, and I'm not showing him showing up either.
I'm guessing he's having connection issues because I don't see anything that wouldn't allow him to speak either.
Okay.
So a possible suggestion would be just to let him stay on and hope that he gets connected. Or I can put him back in attendees and we can try again when it's appropriate.
Would that be all right, Mayor, if we put him back in attendee and try and get him in again, or?
Yeah, put him back in, and we will go through the consent agenda, and we can give it a try after that.
Okay.
All right, so on to our next item. So we had consent agenda. One item was pulled, but we still have 2 items.
Move that we pass the consent agenda.
Thank you. So I'll look for a second. Councilmember Dewar.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Agnew to pass the consent agenda, a second by Councilmember Dewar. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. City Clerk?
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorr,
Yes.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 6-0 with Councilmember McAuliffe absent.
All right, thank you. So the item that was pulled was AB 21-002, approval of a resolution establishing a hearing date for street vacation petition. So at the northwest corner of Northeast 185th and Ross Road. Deputy Mayor Zorns.
I mostly have just clarifying questions here, because we don't run across this very often, and we're asking to sell some city property for 50% of its value. It's 29 square feet. So I have a couple questions. Is one, for the public's information, how do we compute the value of 29 square feet if we're vacating a strip?
All right, so this is Peter Pearson, Development Review Engineer for City of Bothell. And the way it was computed was an appraisal was performed by the applicant for the two properties that are abutting the land. And then based on the square foot values of each of those properties, the right of way that was adjacent to it was calculated at being that square foot value times the number of square feet per that section. So there are two properties that are abutting the right of way that the applicant wishes to vacate. And so the one property was used for the land in front of it, and then the second property value was used for the land in front of it. Does that make sense?
It does. I thought I understood that what you did was you kind of averaged out and figured out what it was costing per square foot.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so the square foot value of the properties adjacent to the land.
Okay, great. So Peter, thank you for that. Can I ask you another question? You might be the person I would ask this.
Sure.
Is to just confirm that it's not going to interfere with fire or bus service down the road?
That's correct. We have been coordinating with Sound Transit on this project, since they're putting in a bus rapid transit route right through 185th there.
Right.
So we have confirmed with them that it does not conflict with their plans, and yes, and for fire as well.
Okay. Well, thank you, Peter. The only other piece that I wanted to communicate, because I did kind of toss out this question is at the 11th hour, and it was not purposeful. It was just curiosity. I saw that the properties were all identified as Keeney Addition, and according to our city manager, we really don't have a good understanding where Keeney Addition came from as identifying those properties as Keeney Addition. So any rate, I did call someone on the landmark board, and this was her theory, which you know, I'm just putting out there for council to digest, not make any decisions or anything. It's more of an interesting aside, I think. Her thoughts is that maybe it was Harold Keeney Jr., who was considered one of Bothell's prominent local architects, also the son of Pop Keeney. And his wife was a city clerk for the city of Bothell, also interesting. Harold Keeney designed a number of more modern at the time buildings. The old Bothell Ski and Bike was one of his buildings, and there are people in Bothell who live in some of his homes. So we're kind of guessing that maybe the Keeney Addition was something that he had connections to. It sounds like his architect office wasn't too far from that. But I only bring that up because it's an interesting piece of history and it's getting buried. I don't think we need to have anything sacrosanct on that corner as a nod to Harold Keeney, if that's who it's named after. But it does lend itself to the desire that I have for sign blades that identify old districts of Bothell. It just gives us roots, and that matters to a lot of people. So anyway, if anyone solves the Keeney mystery, I for one would be interested. But I have no objections to setting a hearing date for it. So would you like me to make the motion?
If I could, I just want to clarify for the public, because you've had a discussion about the actual item.
Right.
And thank you for making that statement. This is just to set this item for a public hearing.
Right.
And a full presentation will be made. So I don't want the public to think that this is the only discussion that's happening with regards to selling this property. So the council will have the opportunity, as will the community, to have input at a public hearing. This is just to set the public hearing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And if the community wants to weigh in, I am eager to hear their thoughts on it. Because we have some people who are quite invested in the city, so that would be great. And I do appreciate the clarification that Sound Transit has already looked into it and it has their approval. So would you like me to make the motion, Mayor, or would you like somebody else to do it?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Please. May I speak?
Yeah.
I was just curious. I'm not used to voting on having hearing dates, so I'm just curious about the process on this.
This is I can answer that. This is a two-part process required by state law. The first part, because the public does have an interest in the public right-of-way. The state legislature made a decision to have it be a bifurcated process. The first is a decision of the council to set a hearing date. The hearing is required as a matter of due process. But in order to give the community ample notice of it, that's why we do it in a bifurcated fashion, so that we have this first one to discuss the hearing date, make sure it's on a meeting date where there will be ample time to fully consider the petitioner's request. And then if this resolution passes to set it to that date, on that date is when the petitioner will usually make a pitch to the council as to why the public right-of-way should be vacated.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the explanation. I was curious.
Mayor Olson, you're on mute.
Councilmember Thompson, did you have a?
Just a quick question. Is this just to comply with setback rules?
I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay.
So I can, I guess I can answer that. It's less of a setback issue than for the applicant to have the land they need to build out the apartment building that they're planning on building. So basically they need the sliver of land in order to keep a straight front to the building that they're proposing.
Got it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Zorns?
I move that we approve the resolution establishing a hearing date and time of March 2nd, 2021, City Council meeting for street vacation petitions submitted by Harbor Homes for a portion of the northwest corner of the intersection of 185th Street, Northeast 185th Street and Ross Road.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Dewar.
I second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Deputy Mayor Zorns, a second by Councilmember Dewar. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, City Clerk?
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes?
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorr,
Yes.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 6-0 with Councilmember McAuliffe absent.
All right, thank you. So on to our public hearing. So we have AB 20-003, a public hearing on the amendments to Bothell Municipal Code, Title 20, and adoption of the 2018 state building codes. So I'll now open this public hearing, and we have staff members Dave Swayze and Butch Noble here.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. We have tonight, we're bringing forward information on some issues that have happened with adoption of the state code. some changes that we're proposing to the municipal code. And then we've highlighted some items that we thought would be interesting to you that are happening in the building codes. So I will. Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen here. There we go. There we go. All right, so every 3 to 4 years, the state adopts new building codes to stay current with technology and just changes that are needed through issues that have happened in the building industry or just new things that have come to the table that we can use to make construction cheaper, more efficient, and everything. And what I wanted to start with was the code adoption. The code adoption was originally, well, actually, the code has been adopted by the state. It was adopted on July 1st, 2020. It just isn't effective yet. So it was going to be effective on July 1st, 2020. And due to COVID-19, that was pushed to November 1st, 2020. And then it was pushed to February 1st, 2021. And just last Friday on the 8th, the State Building Code Council voted to push this date out again to July 1st, 2021. And this has a 7-day dispute period where anyone can submit something to keep it at February 1st. So so we don't know what's going to happen with this effective date yet. So we'll go into that with this presentation also. We're going to highlight some BMC changes, some significant changes to the building codes, give you our recommendations, and then recommend a public hearing be held and recommend closure of the public hearing. So there's a national process for developing the code. Goes through different committees and technical committees and administrative committees to create the code. It then comes to the state, and they have their own committees that decide through the code what items they may want to amend or add, and then we bring them to you and for proposal to put them into our into our local codes as a ordinance. And there's an item that the State Building Code Council has that you cannot make any changes to the State Building Code that affects dwelling units without their approval. These are the codes we're going to be talking about tonight. So when I mention the word building codes in plural, I'm referring to all of these unless the slide identifies something specific. This is a summary of changes to the BMC and to the building codes that I'll cover. The BMC 20.02 and 20.04 revisions, we are proposing to adopt the International Existing Building Code in clear verbiage. Right now, we have adopted the 2015 existing building code, but there's no requirement for designers to use the existing building code. This will require designers to use the existing building code for any tenant improvements, additions, or alterations in existing buildings. The other item that we're proposing is phase certificate of occupancy. Currently, the municipal code contains a section that discusses temporary certificate of occupancy, and it specifically prohibits issuing temporary certificates of occupancy. What a phase certificate what a phase certificate of occupancy is it's a controlled method for us to allow someone to get into a building and occupy while something small, nothing life safety, nothing structural, nothing really important is outstanding. We've run into situations where just a swinging door, it's not fire rated, it's not an egress door, is on back order, and because they don't have these little things in place, we can't final the building because the project isn't done. So this gives us that mechanism to do that with a bond that they'll have to post, and that would then give us the ability to take care of it on our own if we needed to. And then in 20.04, we've at the request of the fire department, we've changed the elevator size from 24-inch by 84-inch to 26-inch to 86-inch because this better accommodates a ambulance stretcher. One of the new items in the IBC is occupied roofs. You see occupied roofs now under older codes. There were a lot of problems in trying to accommodate what the designers and the developers wanted to do there. What this section does is it gives clarity to means of egress, accessibility, and allowable area and height requirements. Another new section in the IBC is for higher education laboratories. This is specifically for colleges and universities. This would basically they would be allowed to have more hazmat within their laboratory areas, provided they install fire protected walls between the laboratories and other areas that are non-laboratory. The accessibility provisions are going to require a minimum of one power-operated door for assembly occupancies over 300 occupants, and business, mercantile, and residential that are over 500 occupants. And then there is some language added for gender-neutral restrooms. These aren't necessarily requiring gender-neutral restrooms. They are providing the pieces in case someone wants to put one in. So we're not at the point in the code where we're requiring them. I think in the 2021 and 2024 codes we will probably get there, but right now this is if they install them. Probably the single biggest item that's changing in the building code is the addition of mass timber buildings, basically being able to build tall wood buildings taller than you can now. Example of that, like I put here in the first bullet, if you build a type 4A building that's sprinklered within the code, you can build that 18 stories high, provided local regulations allow it. These four categories are A, B, C, and then heavy timber, A being the most restrictive. And then I gave you an example here of a newer building that's been built down in Oregon. IRC significant revisions, basement sleeping rooms. Currently under the 2015 code, if you have a basement sleeping room, you have to have an egress window. What this section is explaining is that if you have a basement window, that it's not the egress, it's not in the sleeping room, it's outside the sleeping room, then you do not have to have an egress window in the sleeping room, provided the building is sprinklered. New provisions for smoke alarms in existing buildings, and the ability to use wireless technology for those smoke alarms. And then new provisions for fire sprinklers when townhouses have 5 units or more. Energy code is probably the most controversial this go around with code adoption. The whole house ventilation system section of the code has been completely revised. This is going to require that every home have a supply fan and a return that are balanced Currently, that's not required in any homes. And this is part of the push to meet energy efficiency of a 70% reduction by 2031 by the state. The other items added to this are new energy credit criteria. Energy credits are energy efficiency options that the applicant can choose. These are mandatory. There's so many options that you have to select based on the size of your building. And so, for example, a medium-sized building, which is between 1,500 and 3,000 square feet, a home, you would have to have 6 options you'd have to choose between HVAC, water heater, better more insulation, and items like that. So this again is to meet that 2031 target. For commercial, there's a requirement for solar readiness on roof areas for any building that is under 20 stories. So this means that they're going to have to be pre-wired for that and be able to easily install solar at a later date. And then the lighting power allowances options that we currently have, the factors used for that are reduced, which will result in less lighting wattage being used in certain facilities like retail, and classrooms are probably the largest ones that have dropped. So, and I will now hand this over to Butch.
Thank you, Dave. Bear with me, folks, while I steal control of our presentation from Dave, and then he has to accept that. Okay, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. Thank you, Dave. I will jump right into the International Fire Code, what I think are some of the highlights for the 2018 code. The first thing I have here is locking arrangements on educational buildings, schools, and businesses. Traditionally, the code speaks to getting people out of the building, and it's a sign of the times that now the code book is speaking to keeping people out of rooms. That's new for us. It still requires folks to be able to unlock the door from the inside, but the new language on the 2018 code is how to potentially keep people from getting into a room. So I think that kind of speaks for itself, and it's an unfortunate testimony to kind of where we're headed with some of our schools and businesses. The second highlight is outdoor assembly. This is brand new in the code book. A permit required for an outdoor assembly of greater than 1,000. It requires potentially a public safety plan, fire apparatus access. As fire marshal, I can actually require a weather monitor. I'm not sure if or when I would do that, but it's in the code. We need plans for cooking operations, fuels, generators, and other fire access features. And again, as a reminder, it's only when we're over 1,000 occupants for any particular gathering. Fire watch for new buildings under construction. This is also new. Chapter 33 and the International Fire Code and the Building Code is the construction and demolition chapter. However, this language is new in that it speaks to new construction over 40 feet high, and I thought this was relevant because of our Main Street fire we had a couple of years ago. During non-working hours, we can require those types of building construction to post a fire watch. And as it states here, not required for construction less than 5 stories or less than 50,000 square feet. But after our Main Street fire, most of the larger building construction going on in Bothell, and actually most jurisdictions, they were adding their own security and cameras, et cetera. Not everyone was posting fire watch. But this new language allows me to require that for these types of buildings. This is also new for us. Chapter 39 in the fire code, marijuana extraction. We don't have any of these buildings in Bothell right now, but I feel like they're probably coming. Other jurisdictions around us do. They can be highly volatile. They can be, they use some scary stuff. And so the code now speaks to these types of developments and construction. These are some of the requirements in those types of buildings. They are prohibited in places of assembly in schools and other businesses. They're very, very complicated, quite frankly. I've talked to some other fire marshals that have dealt with these types of buildings. And quite honestly, we often get a third-party consultant in on these types of buildings and construction. On-demand mobile fueling. This is also a trend. We noticed this especially in 2020. Folks would rather have the gas come to them than them go to the gas, so to speak. Larger business campuses like Microsoft, so fire marshals in Redmond have been dealing with this. The mobile fueling trucks are coming to these larger campuses and filling up employee vehicles so they don't have to go to the gas station. It's a convenience, but there's also an inherent danger to that process. So the International Fire Code has added this language here to try to regulate and keep it safe. So that's, there's also one slide, and I apologize, I think I skipped over it because my pad is super sensitive. Food trucks. So I'll speak to that real quick. There's a new page in the International Fire Code that references food trucks. They've been unregulated up till now. Most jurisdictions were adopting their own municipal code, so the regulations were kind of all over the board. The fire code now speaks to food trucks. Nothing really too crazy. It's distance from buildings, strapping down propane tanks, annual inspections on the hood systems within the vehicles for the grease-laden vapor type food. As a side note, I'm on a committee. We're looking into food trucks specifically, and we don't want to permit them to death, so to speak. So we're looking at how we can, if say Kirkland inspects a food truck and charges them X amount of dollars, if that food truck a month later is in Bothell, we're thinking they shouldn't have to go through the same process and pay another permit fee. So the fire marshals in King County are looking on into how we can accept each other's permits. So stay tuned. So the next item is our Bothell Municipal Code. The big lift on municipal code this year was a reorg. Not a lot of additions, but our municipal code was not organized very well. And I would like to thank firefighter Doug Wirtz. He put a lot of time and effort into this reorg. A little history here. We met with the Zone 1, King County Zone 1 fire marshals almost every month in 2020. And what we did is we all brought our different municipal codes together and we compared. And we adopted each other's municipal codes that we liked, and we kind of talked about throwing out other municipal codes that didn't make a lot of sense. So after we went through that process, firefighter Wirtz and I realized our municipal code was all over the board as far as being organized. And so what we've done is we've reorged our municipal code to flow with the index of the International Fire Code. And that's also consistent with what other jurisdictions are doing. So it really helps when our vendors or our construction partners are looking for municipal code, it just flows and it makes sense to what they're more used to. And it's consistent with other jurisdictions. One of the changes we did add to the municipal code, or we'd like to add, is Chapter 503, just this language. We call it the access language. And specifically, this is language in the International Fire Code, but the state didn't adopt it, but we would like to. Most jurisdictions around us have. It's really, all it says is we need to have our fire apparatus within 150 feet of all points of a building. It's a fire hose thing. That's where that number comes from. Our fire hoses are 200 feet long. So what it allows us to do is get into a building 50 feet inside. So we'd just like to adopt it and make that official. Again, we're one of the only jurisdictions that hadn't adopted this language out of the International Fire Code up till now. Another addition to the municipal code. This is a lot of text. Really, the only thing we changed was number 1 there. This is assemblies, and when we assembly, meaning gathering of 50 people or more, churches, some schools, etc. When the fire area exceeds 5,000, it used to say 6,000. Again, Bothell was one of the only jurisdictions that had 6,000 square feet instead of 5,000. So when the fire marshals got together and compared notes, we decided to, for the sake of consistency, adopt a 5,000 square foot rule. And I think that's about it for municipal code. And here's a list of our resources. And as Dave mentioned in the beginning, our recommendations are an open public hearing, close the public hearing, and then we'll delay adoption until the January 19th meeting. So thanks for your time tonight, and we would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
So City Clerk, were there any comments received?
There were not, excuse me, there were no comments received.
And Mayor Olson, if I may speak, do you have a second option? Instead of closing the public hearing, you can simply, at the conclusion of questions and deliberation, make a motion to set this over to the 19th to a date certain, leave the public hearing open in case something unexpected happens. And then once council makes a final determination on this agenda item, then the public hearing would automatically close.
All right. Councilmember Dewar.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to thank staff for their work and also put my voice in that it's wonderful to have reorganized the code to match the international codes, because it's so difficult to try to sift through one and then have a completely different set of numbers. It's so much easier. It makes a ton of sense. So thank you for whatever amount of time it took you to do that, because you'll be saving professionals loads and loads of time. So
thank you very much.
Anyone else with questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Zorns.
First, I have to thank you for your thoughtfulness about food trucks and working in tandem with rest of King County. Life is hard enough for food trucks, and I appreciate someone being thoughtful there. And then the apparatus access within 150 feet all around makes sense. I do have a couple of questions, mostly that are born out of curiosity on mostly building code that I would like to toss out. I saw that it's on page 137 of our agenda packet that owner occupied lodging with 1 or 2 guest rooms will be permitted. You could have up to 3 to 5 guest rooms. My question for our city code is that I know that for single family residents, an owner occupied home can have up to 5 unrelated people. So I guess my question is that going to be in conflict with 3 to 5 guest rooms, saying in theory, 2 people are in each guest room? And so you could have, more than 5 unrelated people in one single family home. Is there a conflict there, or is it just understood guest room equals heads?
Well, the reason for the change was some building code language that made lodging facilities without them being owner occupied, them being required to be regulated out of the International Building Code. That would include a house. So we want to make sure we had language in there that would allow, these bed and breakfasts, like smaller homes, when they are occupied, to do these kinds of things. As far as if they're going to interfere with the maximum occupancy based on planning regulations, I will have to look into that. I don't believe so, because you're allowed up to a maximum of 6, and I think this is allowing up to 4 to 5. Mike, you want to jump in here?
Yes, if I could. Deputy Mayor, I think what we're talking about is a couple of different circumstances here, and we'll look into this a little bit more to make sure that we're clear on the definitions. But when the zoning code talks about unrelated individuals, it's talking about occupants in terms of residency in the structure versus someone who's a temporary lodger in a structure, which is what this is getting at.
Okay, so yeah, if that, yeah, as long as we're clear on that, I think the city at large would appreciate that. I know of another area where a house has been turned into a rental home, and the homes around there are now dealing with more cars on the street. So I get bed and breakfasts and having people, hosting people who are traveling through the area. That makes sense. So if that's clarified, that would be great. I noticed a comment on it's on page 186 of our agenda packet about moving homes into the area. Is that talking about that's not talking about manufactured homes that are sitting on a temporary pad like in our mobile home parks. Is it talking about more modular homes that are going to be anchored to a foundation?
Yeah, that section was already in there. That section was just relocated into a different area so that it better fit the layout of the code.
Okay, part of that reorganization.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, how do you inspect it if it's because I saw that it's inspected before it leaves, before it comes here? Is that something where you work with another party who checks all the boxes and then the home gets moved into our city? How do you do the inspection process?
So the moved structures portion of the code would only apply to let's say we're talking about a home that's on a permanent foundation.
Right.
So in that case, they would have to have their permanent foundation in place, and then they would fill out their application, pay whatever fees to have building and also police if they need them, guide them through the city to where they need to go. And then they would have a pre-inspection before the home is placed on the foundation, and then an inspection after it's done.
Right. And moving of utility lines and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, in the case of a manufactured home or a mobile home, they're on, I guess you would call them permanent foundations, but they're more on blocks and shims that they're placed on. They're not necessarily on a concrete foundation, so that doesn't really apply to them.
The foundations are just different enough that it's a whole different category.
Correct.
Okay, and then I have a question about, it's in chapter 56, explosives, fireworks, and international code. And this may be another piece that's been moved around in the organization. It's on page 271. Does the international code on fireworks change what we have in place for fireworks right now?
No, Deputy Mayor, does not. And most of our fireworks regulations come from the state, quite frankly.
Okay. And then, and it won't change for like the owner who has a gun and has ammo for their small arms. It's not going to change.
No.
Okay. Well, I like our attorney's suggestion that we keep the public hearing open till, is it the 19th? In case if there's more comment. I like that, but all in all, this was really interesting to go through and see the changes that are coming into to play for the next phase of code. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Councilmember Dewar.
Move to adopt the revisions, deletions, and additions to BMC Title 20.
If we do that now without knowing.
Oh, we're gonna wait to the 19th. I'm so sorry. I got confused.
Yeah, if you'd like to make the motion would be to continue this item to a date certain of January 19th, 2021.
I move that we continue this item to a date certain of January, what,
19.
19th, 2021. Is it 2021 already? I think that's the first time I've said it.
Excellent. Councilmember Agnew.
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Councilmember Dewar and a second by Councilmember Agnew. Any further discussion on the item? Councilmember Agnew.
I would just like to thank staff for all the work they've done to organize this and get this all together to make it a functional document that is a lot easier to deal with. Great job, guys.
All right, City Clerk.
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Zorns,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Mayor Olson,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorr,
Yes.
Councilmember Agnew.
Yes.
Passes 6-0 with Councilmember McAuliffe absent.
All right, thank you, everyone. All right.
Mayor Olson, I just want to let you know the person that was on the line for previous visitor comment hung up before the public hearing, so there is nobody.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, on to our final item of council conversations. Anyone have a topic they'd like to start off with? Deputy Mayor Zorns.
Sorry. You can just call me the camera hog, and that's not on purpose. I just wanted to just have a light note. I was speaking to Danae McGee today, and she was updating me on something that's coming up in Begin at Bothell next week, maybe. For people who know what Huga is, you are way ahead of me, but there's going to be a whole blog article on Huga. And I think you guys might be interested in reading about it. It's a Danish way of approaching your winter, and it is social coziness in winter life. And it's all about finding ways to self-care and build community, even if it's small, on cold winter bleak days. So be looking for that at Begin at Bothell.
Deputy Councilmember Dewar.
I just wanted to say that Councilmember McNeil looks fit as a fiddle and back to normal. So I hope that means that you're healing well.
You have no idea how happy I am right now. I'm in the sun, just so you know.
I was going to say, you look really comfortable.
I am very comfortable. Thank you. I must say that I am very happy to see everybody smiling. This is the first time in a long time that I'm looking around and everybody's actually smiling on this Zoom call. So I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm feeling better. And hopefully I can bring some joy and happiness to everyone else, especially when I've got little ones poking their head around me.
It's because your smile's contagious. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
You too.
The little one behind you in a Zoom call is like a good solid half of my personality at this point in time. So I understand that very much.
Yeah, we're all blessed to be happy and healthy, and hopefully we can get everybody vaccinated soon. I do want to say, take a moment to give a shout out to our city staff once again, as much as we can, for everything they're doing to keep things going for us in the community, and keeping a positive attitude. I've had an opportunity before I came to the Sun to speak to a couple of folks that work within the city, and just everything they're doing and the camaraderie that they have together. Just it's overwhelming, and it's it's just an honor to be part of the process and part of the team. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to everybody at the city, all the staff, everybody who's doing an amazing job, police, fire, public works, just everybody, parks, limited staff, just keeping stuff open. It's amazing. Just the other day before I left, again, I keep saying I left because I left a short time ago. There was just a ton of people out there before the rains hit out at Wayne. It's just amazing. And I just feel so blessed to be in the environment that we are in Bothell. While, we're, one community of 48,000, we're just blessed to be here, and all the national stuff that's going on. I think every day just to have the people around me that we have. Got a card up? Why you got a card up? I thought this is just talk.
We don't have to have permission in council conversations, do we?
Well, I was going to make a motion that we close the meeting, that we adjourn.
Councilmember Agnew.
I'll second that.
All right.
Unanimous consent.
Yes, yes, it is.
Thank you, everyone.
To see everyone.
Yeah, it's good to see everyone.
Have a great week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody stay well.